implementing this idea in the life is quite a challenge, because the environment is not conducive. Like with anybody, when they consume sugar, it gives you a good feeling. How do they associate that with the fact that over the long term it's not good for them?
It might have tasted good, but this is also reality, and that is also reality. And now, which is why decision making isn't easy. Like, what do we want to empower our kids with? Are we not being a good parent if we are letting go?
Hi everyone, my name is Aadharsh. I am an engineer and I did an MBA and worked in the corporate for a while before we had our kids, who just turned 3 last June. While they are a bundle of joy, like all children are, there are also moments in our life where they also put us in a spot during the day when we navigate through certain situations. So we are here to talk about such situations while interacting with kids with Sonam. Hi Sonam.
Hi Aadharsh, thank you. I'm Sonam Mahajan, a mindfulness teacher and life coach. I'm also a mother of 2 daughters, 4 and 2, and really excited to be talking about approaches to parenting.
Parenting is a journey. It teaches a lot. It puts us in challenging, difficult, sometimes I don't know what kind of situations.
Yeah.
So today, let us take, for example, the topic of sugar, as to how to have the best approach when it comes to sugar. We all know that sugar is not great for children, for anybody, and in these times it's even more spoken about.
Yeah.
However, implementing this idea in the life is quite a challenge, because the environment is not conducive in a way.
Yeah.
At home, it's relatively easy for us, because we have almost cut out processed sugar and we take alternatives to adding processed sugar. But however, the moment we step out of the house, it's hard to control their behavior. The moment they see all those desserts covered in sugary, fluffy sugary stuff, it's really hard to control their behavior. How do you go about such a situation, Sonam?
Well, for sure, I think as a parent, I face the exact same challenges. So I think just taking a step back, right, from what you said, there are these stark facts around sugar, and we all know it's not great for us. But having said that, there is enough opportunity for kids to see it all around them. Whether it's the malls, their clothing, schools, what they get served at birthday parties, and they have access to this. And then, like you described, I think it's the home environment, and then the how they interact with the outside environment and what they see there. And the struggle is real. Right now, let's just look at the problem statement here, right, in our mind as parents. In that moment, when you see them out of control, so to speak, the instinctive thinking or reaction is how to control their behavior, is what you described.
Like, how do I take it away from here?
And this is instinctive. But if we could, from a thinking perspective, take a step back and rephrase that problem statement to say, how can I be there for the child in a way that I can empower them to think about this, to make a choice for themselves in the moment, in the long term. And to some extent, I feel like if we can do that, we might be able to come up with solutions where we can co-create with them, rather than coming from a space of I am superior and I know what's best for you and you must do what I say. And the space of control that we tend to naturally slip into. And I think also not to beat ourselves too much for it, because this is the way that we've been conditioned. Many of us have been raised perhaps in a very traditional manner, where we have followed instructions and we followed what was told to us, and we've acted so. And that naturally comes in the way that we parent, whether we know it or we don't know it.
Yeah.
So I think if we want to change that, becoming conscious and aware of the fact that we can perhaps change the problem statement and think about it differently, could allow us to then respond to that same challenge in perhaps a different manner.
Right, Sonam, so you did mention something about co-creating a solution.
Yeah.
What do you mean by co-creating a solution with a 3-year-old?
Valid. So I think this is instinctively something that comes to our mind, that these are little humans and what do they know? And I am tasked with this role wherein I need to guide them, I need to tell them what to do, and and I think this is coming from how we were brought up. So fundamentally, viewing them as individual beings themselves, then perhaps far more present than we can be, and letting that unfold. But I think when we start coming from a space of control and needing to fix them, we rob them of the opportunity and experience that they are going through and that they are showing us. So for instance, if in that moment there is valuable information for us, we miss that because we are too consumed in making an outcome possible, which is to get them to stop eating because sugar is not good, and all of that thinking. So what I meant by co-creation is, if we can, and this is hard to do, if we can really tune into them, drop our defenses, drop our ego or what we want, and just get into the moment. What's happening right now? This is what I had planned and this is what we had spoken about, clearly not unfolding in that manner. Now, what is my child experiencing? What am I experiencing? The discomfort. How are we going to negotiate this situation that is now there? So I think to some extent, again, what I spoke about in terms of accepting that, okay, there was this ideal scenario that I had envisioned, we had perhaps even spoken about, but now that is not unfolding in that manner, and which is probably what happens 99% of the time with kids.
What I hear is a lot of decision making within that split second when so you had an idealistic situation, then you reduce your expectations, see what is reality, and then but then you also acknowledge how you feel about that, and probably communicate it to the child that you do not approve of it, or is that what you mean by co-creating to the next step?
So again, I feel like if we come from the space of I don't appreciate this, are we trying to guilt trip them, or are we trying to make them feel bad about having done something? I think the intention, going back to why is it that this thought is coming into our mind, looking at, okay, is this coming from a space where I feel like I know what is happening? And of course, to some extent, you're like, here are the research papers, this is bad, fundamentally is bad. But we are also trying to get them into a place where they can choose eventually for themselves. What is more important? Is it important that they don't eat that right now? Or is it more important that they make healthy choices for their life, have a good relationship with their food, right? So now, and this is what happens with food, right? We're guilt tripped, we're made to feel bad about having lack of control. And this is how it builds. We build an unhealthy relationship with food. And we can briefly talk about this as well. The aspect around eating mindfully. If the child has decided in that moment to engage in eating the amount that they want to, just making them aware that, how are you feeling? Are you really full? Some kids might actually say my stomach is paining because they've just consumed so much sugar. Or they may actually get cranky, and then bringing to their attention perhaps that this is probably, how their body is responding to sugar. So not coming from a space of I know what's right for you, but being able to show that light to them, just as a matter of fact, in terms of what is unfolding for them, letting them tune into their body, letting that be information and resourcefulness for them for the future. You know what I mean? So
it is a bit of a challenge also,
Sonam,
because when they are, like with anybody, when they consume sugar, it gives you a good feeling, you're feeling all the chemical reactions in the brain, you're feeling good. And how do they associate that with the fact that over the long term it's not good for them unless they see concrete? I don't know how to make it so evident to them.
So we're looking for if I do this, I will get that. And there is absolutely no manual to parenting, and which is why if we can optimize for that moment and co-create that solution, because that will be a negotiated solution between you and your child, your individual value systems, your individual backgrounds, your individual choices, and what you come up with will be a very unique solution. So there is no way that I can tell you my solution and then somebody replicates that, right? So perhaps the most authentic way and a deep way where you can actually connect and build that trust with your child would be to engage in this moment by moment decision-making co-creation process.
What I hear from you is to have a buy-in of the child rather than to have a more authoritative approach, but to have a relationship, a trust-based relationship that goes over the long term, so that they believe you, they trust you, they come from a place of trust rather than having to just listen to you because you're older to them, or because you're the
Right.
person with a higher authority.
And they can catch that, right, in the way that we communicate with them that, okay, I did something that we've talked about not being good, and like you said, sugar feels good. So perhaps acknowledging the reality of that as well, right? We're not lying to them. Sugar might taste good, but is it healthy? So again, presenting them with the facts that it might have tasted good, but this is also a reality, and that is also a reality. And now, which is why decision making isn't easy, even for us as adults, right? So allowing them to know that it is tough, and that we are going to have to build this muscle of decision making over time. And hence, I think in that moment, it takes a lot for us as parents to let go for the sake of the long term.
You said it
Empowerment,
right, letting go. I mean, it means that it is so hard letting go. When you are having discussions with a child, when you believe in something and when they believe contrary to that, and when you think and and you feel with conviction that you're right, but letting it go. Right? But it's a very hard thing to do, letting go, because we're supposed to take care of them. We are supposed to be their protector. But at the same time, that also means there will be moments where we have to just let them stray a little bit, and then maintain that long-term relationship based on trust and guide them continuously.
Yeah. And like you said, right, letting go in a particular moment doesn't mean that we are letting go of our role as a parent and the responsibility that we have attached to that in terms of their safety and all of that. So again, this is where we need to understand that there are nuances to life. It is not an either or, which we tend to look out for. That should I do this? Should I, is saying no to the child good, or is it bad? And I just want to follow that. Maybe at times no is required. So I think that engagement and that realism needs to come in, that this is life and it will have to be navigated moment by moment, and there isn't a handout.
Yeah, there isn't a perfect situation where the perfect solution would apply. It's something that evolves with time, with the child's dispositions. Every child is an individual in itself, right, with their own likes and dislikes.
Absolutely. And like you said, are we not being a good parent if we are letting go?
Yeah.
Looking at how do we define being good? What does parenting really mean to us? Like, what do we want to empower our kids with? Do we want to teach them how to think, how to make choices, how to learn, or do we want to tell them what they must learn or what they must think? Which is what I think we tend to gravitate to, because perhaps we've acquired knowledge, or we feel that we know stuff, and that's where I was coming from, in terms of we feel that we are superior to them, and what do they know, and hence we come from a space of I will tell you what you must do, what you must think, rather than empowering them with the skill set of choosing, of deciding.
To just add to that, Sonam, so while I was expecting, I had read this book about bringing up a child the French way, and there they speak about having a framework for the children.
Yeah.
It really helped me, because it's a set of twins, having a set time, having a set routine, giving them that framework really helped. But I agree with you. I think it's neither this nor that. Neither totally sticking to the framework nor totally letting go. Having a framework as a guide is very, very, very useful for any child, to have a set routine, to know that if I sit at the table, I get my meal. If I sit elsewhere, I don't get my meal. That's a very, very useful thing for a child.
And those are tactical, absolutely. I think, like you said, those frameworks are required. We still need to brush our teeth, we need to bathe, and those are essential, and they need to learn those skills as well. But I think those skills are enough talked about, and I feel like the reason why we are today focusing on the other side of it is not because only that should be done. It's because we tend to miss out that entire chunk. So that needs to be interwoven with our reality right now. And as you spoke about the fact that bringing these two would perhaps work for you, there might be a parent who might be very regimented, and for them they might require more of coming to co-creation mindset, and it's so individual. It won't be the same for another parent as it is for me or for you.
That's definitely useful for me, knowing that there are moments that I can just let go, because otherwise there's this internal conflict that I have to deal with and come to terms with the conflict between the reality that I envision as ideal versus the reality that is actually unfolding.
And when you bring this up, So what comes to mind? It's hard for us to let go because
What is happening is not something that I think is right.
right, and when that not so right thing happens, what would happen?
Oh, the general feeling of not having control over the situation, not
Right.
having control over today, maybe not having control over tomorrow. I
Right.
fear that, oh, my children might take a liking to it, so maybe wherever they see
Yeah.
cake shops, they will stop and say, Mama, I want
Yeah.
another piece of cake. So,
Yeah.
so I think I come from a place of fear, anxiety
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the future.
Not just you, and I think this is all of us. If we start looking at the threads, it is fear, and I see this popping up, several times in the day, right? We are troubleshooting for kids, and what's the right solution in that moment, and there's this sense of understanding that it's based on fear. It's based on a sense of lack, that the worst is possible, right? Somehow we find it difficult to attach with the abundance around it, the fact that they perhaps might have the wisdom to be able to do something. Can I let them explore? Can I let them make the mistakes that they have to make? I mean, I am so big on personal transformation, but then again, I feel like it's so hard, and then I have to remind myself that I love that process of challenges and growing through that. How can I rob them of that by telling them, no, this is the way that one must do it? So again, how do we look at parenting? Do we feel guilty about not parenting them if we're letting them go? Or is it wisdom-based parenting to allow them that thing? So I think it's again thinking about what we value, how we think, so it requires that kind of internal work to be able to answer these questions, as opposed to looking at external answers and then just taking it and replicating, because that really it's a hit and miss. Then you're taking somebody else's solution and just trying it out.
Yeah, true. Thank you so much, Sonam. So that was a very useful discussion. To sum it up, so basically what we are saying is there is no one-stop solution. There is a journey, there is a learning, depending on the situation, depending on the circumstance. And the fact that you need to attune to your child. The second one is to be in the moment, see what the child is seeing, feel what the child is feeling, acknowledge what you are feeling, and to finally, the third one, which is to let go of control, or the need to want to have control of the situation, and to go into a learning path, and into a journey of learning along with the child. But thank you so much for the discussion. This is a very useful talk that we had today.
Thank you, Aadharsh, for summing it up beautifully. Yeah, and happy to have more such conversations. I think it allows all of us as parents to think aloud, because I think, like you said, right, there isn't a defined path for any of this, because we are unique, our child is unique, what we come up with will be unique as well in that moment, and that's what will work best for us. So if you all have more such problem statements or challenges that you face, we'd be happy to chat about it.
Absolutely.
And look forward to sharing more. Of course, if this is useful for you, please do subscribe to the Yellow Dot Talks YouTube channel, and I will see you next week.